What's up, everybody? It's Bcock, and welcome to our Viktor First Impressions. Now, as normal, I'm going to talk about Viktor's skill first, so if you already know what all of his skills are, I'll put a button right now that says, click here to skip ahead to where I actually give my full impression about him. So, to start off, we'll start off with Viktor's passive. And what Viktor's passive is, it's an okay passive in the respect once you get it, but it's a passive that costs you money and it takes up an item slot. And what it is you can choose from 3 different passives, but it costs 1200 gold and it also takes up an item slot, which in my opinion is terrible because it not only hinders you late game the passive, but it also delays your build. Because let's say that you're going to go for a Rod of Ages and then you're going to go for a Death Cap, pretty standard, right? Well, you get the Rod of Ages, and then you have the choice whether you're going to go for the Death Cap or you're not going to have your passive until super late game. So normally what I did was build Rod of Ages, go passive, then Death Cap. By then, you're delaying your Death Cap 1200 gold, which is a lot. I just feel like it is not a good passive, and for it to be a viable passive, I feel like they should either take away that it takes up an item slot, or they needed to make it free, where either you choose in the beginning of the game what one of the 3 passives you want, or you choose at like level 7 or something what one of the passives you want and not have it cost money, because it's a real hindrance on his abilities and his building. Moving on from there though, his Q is a simple single target Q, and what it does is you hit someone with it. It does pretty decent damage. There's better nukes, but it's a pretty good nuke early game. It's good for harassing. And what happens is after you hit someone, it bounces back to you, and when it hits you, you get a shield for 40% of the damage that you dealt. So it sounds really good, but the only problem with it is you have to get really close to it, a lot closer than any other like mage spells, to actually go in and use it. So you're actually having to almost like use that shield no matter what, because you're almost 100% going to get hit back because the shield's range is the attack's range is so short. Moving on from there, his W is a standard CC spell. Imagine Vigor's Event Horizon. It's about that big, and its cast range is horrible unless you get the upgrade for it, which is again 1200 gold, which is kind of ridiculous. And then the cast range on it's 30% bigger, and then it's manageable. But I mean, it's about as big as Vigor's Event Horizon, which is his stun, his E. And if you stand in it for, I think it's 3 seconds, or I think it's 3 or 2 seconds, something like that, then you get stunned for 1.5 seconds. Which is, it's good because it's an AoE stun. AoE stuns are awesome. And also, if you walk through it, or if you touch it for any amount of time, you get slowed by a considerable amount. It's about 40%, I think. So it's good. The only problem is you don't have to, but it's almost necessary to buy the upgrade for it to be used for harassing or used in lane. The only way you're going to be able to get it off is in team fights. If someone's running away, you're not going to be able to hit them with it unless you have the upgrade for it. Moving on from there, Viktor's E is, I don't know what it's called, but it's a little laser beam that has the same targeting system as Rumble does for his ultimate. And I'm glad they found a new way to incorporate this, and it's a pretty decent move because it takes a considerable amount of skill to use the move, and also it does a good amount of damage. I believe it also has 1.0 scaling, which is really strong for an AoE move. And it doesn't have any it doesn't lose damage for how many targets it hits or anything. The only problem is it's really hard to aim, and it's hard to get used to the aiming system if you don't use Rumble a lot, because he's the only one besides Viktor now that uses that targeting system. So it takes a little while, but the range on it is insanely long at like max range. But also it's a little bit slow while it's moving, so like people can tell when it's coming near them and they can react in time before it hits them if they're smart enough. It's also good for farming. Now Viktor's ultimate is interesting to me, and I also think it's very good. What it does is that you activate it and a storm cloud comes down and it does an initial burst amount of damage and silences everyone that it hits for half a second. So it's good. That can cancel ultimates, that can cancel channels, and it can fuck up a whole team fight really well. And after you activate it, it lasts for 7 seconds, and it does consistent AoE damage around it. It's not a lot, though. It's just kind of like, it's basically like a mini ignite kind of, but it lasts really long because it doesn't do that much damage. Like, it's not noticeable unless you're fed. Like the passive or the constant damage on it isn't that noticeable unless you're fed, but it still is a nice continuation in the team fight to have. Also, you can move the ult around, which is really great because that adds another element to him where it's kind of harder to use, but even if they run away, you can still keep hitting them with it, which is pretty cool. Alright, now if you didn't want to listen to me talk about Viktor's here's where you're going to join us. Viktor is another 6300 champion. We saw it coming, everyone saw it coming, and I believe he is one of the first 6300s in a while that is worth it, because he has a lot of unique moves. He has a unique passive that they just integrated, which is new. And by creativity, he's worth it. He's worth 6300 in my opinion. He is a champion that they put thought into and that they worked on for a while. Now, if we're talking about power, if we're talking about how well he's going to do in ranked, how consistent he is, how hard he is to counter, I would say he is not worth 6300. I would say if we were judging if we were doing IP to power ratio, then I would say Viktor is worth maybe 3150 because he has some good burstiness. He has good CC. He has an AoE stun. But the fact that you have to buy his passive, the fact that his range on his CC sucks dick unless you buy that, unless you buy the W passive, and the fact that I would say only 2 of his moves will give you consistent damage, and his E, which is like his main nuke, is very inconsistent. I would say that he is an inconsistent champion, and unless you can play him very well, then he's not going to do well for you in ranked. Why would I pick Viktor in ranked over, let's say, Sion or maybe Annie, who have really consistent damage, and I know that I'll land at least like 2 out of 3 spells. With Viktor, his CC is really short range unless I buy the passive. His E I could miss. His R they could flash away from. Like there's a lot of things that you have to think about when you play Viktor, and I feel that there are more viable people than him, but he's still a really fun champion, and he's really well thought out. And the only problem I really had with him is missing his E's a lot, and the fact that his Q is so short range and the shield on the Q doesn't come back to you fast enough to where you can actually block harassment. That is his main problem. That's not to say he's not strong. I think he's decent, but I think the shield needs to come back faster, and I think it would be a lot better. But if you can get good with Viktor, and if you can get past the fact that you can't have 6 items with him and that you have to pay 1200 to get a passive that you should already have, he's the only champion that you have to pay to get a move or to get a passive. It's so stupid in my opinion. I should already get that for free. That's why I'm playing the champion, because he has that move. I shouldn't have to buy the passive or buy any moves on him, you know what I mean, in the game. So I feel like that's his biggest hindrance, along with the fact that he's so skill shot based and that he only has two consistent forms of damage, in my opinion. So if you like casters like I do, and if you like unique, challenging characters, Viktor is a great buy. But if you don't like casters, if you want someone who's consistent and ranked, if you want someone who's gonna like pull out for you all the time, Viktor's not that champion. He's definitely not. He's not the consistent burst champion that you want. He's not a consistent ranked champion in my opinion. He's just kind of a fun guy to play every now and then. And if you miss skill shots, you're just gonna get frustrated. That's what all skill shot champions are. But besides that, that's really all I have to say about Viktor. If you have a comment about him or about anything I said, leave a comment down below, and I'll probably get back to you guys. Tell me I'm wrong. If you think I'm wrong, if you think he's really viable, you can tell me. I love being told I'm wrong. But besides that, this is Beacock for the League Cast, and I'm signing out. I'll catch you guys later.